This week, Big4.com brings you PricewaterhouseCoopers' finding that China to be the most favored destination for companies looking to raise capital and float their businesses. Ernst & Young's forecast on further interest rate cuts likely in bleak Eurozone midwinter. KPMG's recommendation that anti-bribery and corruption arrangements need to be revisited. KPMG's report on businesses in emerging markets adopting social media. Accenture forecasting that consumer electronics industry may face $17 billion product returns bill, and that Deloitte's consumer spending index did drop in November. Each week, Big4.com covers key news, events, happenings, opinions, and blogs relating to all the Big Four accounting and consulting firms. You can view this video on our website and on Big4.com's channel on YouTube. So let's start with this week's roundup of the top news. 15 years from now, China is predicted by almost 80% of respondents to PricewaterhouseCoopers' Capital Markets in 2025 report to be the most favored destination for companies looking to raise capital and float their businesses. The report confirmed the current attractiveness of London and New York as the leading financial centers for access to international capital, with 72% and 74% of those surveyed saying that they would consider those markets for an IPO on a foreign exchange. However, the numbers favoring the shift to the east is dependent on a number of critical factors like access. According to Ernst & Young's Eurozone winter forecast, a mild recession in the Eurozone in the first half of 2012 is now looking increasingly likely. The EEF welcomes the recent decisions by the European Central Bank to reverse its premature interest rate rises of earlier in 2011. Further, the report states that it is likely that further easing will be required, accompanied by more measures to supply liquidity to banks. In addition, ongoing doubts about the ability of some countries to implement necessary reforms will mean that the ECB will need to keep buying government bonds. The Serious Fraud Office, the lead agency in England and Wales for investigating and prosecuting cases of overseas corruptions, is communicating with businesses in the UK. They are requesting that if a company or individuals are asked to make a facilitation payment in the course of doing business overseas, they report it. This disclosure is in conjunction with the Australian government's proposal, considering whether to remove the facilitation payments defence in the criminal code. The proposal, if adopted, will mean Australia's anti-bribery laws will be aligned more closely to the recently legislated UK Bribery Act 2010, which does not allow a defence for facilitation payments. And here are the latest jobs from the Big Four job board. See the site for more details. Businesses in the emerging markets are finding that social media offers a relatively low-cost way to effectively compete in developed markets. This, according to Malcolm Alder, a partner with KPMG in Australia's digital economy practice. He was commenting on a recent report by KPMG International. Based on a survey of almost 4,000 managers and employees in major markets around the world, the KPMG International report entitled Going Social: How Businesses Are Making the Most of Social Media found that Chinese, Indian, and Brazilian respondents were almost 30% more likely than their counterparts in the UK, Australia, Germany, or Canada to say that their organization utilized social media within their businesses. Product return rates on consumer electronics products have increased by 21% since 2007, according to a new research report from Accenture, with the cost to U.S. consumer electronics retailers and manufacturers estimated at close to $17 billion this year. The research is based in part on a survey of executives from communications carriers, consumer electronics retailing, and consumer electronics manufacturing companies, which revealed that product return rates over the past 3 to 5 years have increased for more than half of the retailers and nearly half of the manufacturers surveyed. Burdened primarily by the housing market with its high number of foreclosed homes and mortgage defaults, the Deloitte Consumer Spending Index fell again in November. The index tracks consumer cash flow as an indicator of future consumer spending, comprised of 4 components: tax burden, initial unemployment claims, real wages, and real home prices, the index fell to 1.75 from 1.96 the previous month, its lowest level since April 2009. Highlights of the index findings include the fact that real wage growth was stagnant this month, and that was attributed to easing energy prices. This has been Melissa with your Big Four Weekly News. I'll see you next time.